welcome to Restoration. My name is Matt. So glad you could join us as we continue our series on the blood brothers, the story of the sons of Jacob. Today is Shabbat Hagadol. It's called the Great Sabbath before Passover, which begins at sundown on Wednesday night. Now, last week, Joseph could not hold it in anymore. He broke. He cleared the room. He wept so loud that Egypt heard it. And in Hebrew, the language of his father's house, he said, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. And we remember throughout this, throughout the last several chapters, Genesis 42 and verse 8, it said, though Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Now, his brothers have stood in front of him. They cannot see who he is, not because they're foolish, but because the disguise he's wearing is so effective. But underneath the disguise, the one thing that couldn't change, Joseph said to his brothers, come near, vayigash. We talked about it in last week's message. And what his brothers saw is his circumcision, the Brit Milah, the covenant of Abraham, the proof underneath the disguise of who he really is. Now, Joseph did not choose his Egyptian identity. Pharaoh put it on him, the name, the wife, the linen, the gold. It was forced on him as a condition of his survival and his calling. And in the same way, Jesus wears a disguise that was also forced on him, not by Pharaoh, but by history, by well-meaning people on both sides of a divide that began to form just a generation after his death and widened for the last 2,000 years. Jesus' disguise is a European face and a Gentile religion placed on him by history. My brother calls him the white Norwegian surfer Jesus. And just as the brothers could not see Joseph standing right in front of them, Jesus' own people, the Jewish people, cannot see him. He wants to say to his people, like Joseph said to his brothers, he wants to say, Am Yeshua. So today, this is part 20 of our series, and it's called I Am Yeshua. And it's happening since the late 1800s and accelerating even in our day. Yeshua is being seen again as one who embraced and practiced Judaism. His Jewishness is being restored, not because anybody finally figured it out, but because this is what God does. He works through broken human partners for a very long time, and then he reveals himself and calls his people back. And we are living in that moment. Now, most people know what is called the Christmas story, and most people stop the Christmas story on Christmas at Luke chapter 2 and verse 20. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, just as they had been told. It feels like an ending. The angels have already sung, Gloria in excelsis Deo. But of course, the angels didn't sing in Latin. Those shepherds wouldn't have understood Latin. They heard the angels in Hebrew. Latin was the language of the empire occupying their land. And I love singing that song in Latin. It's a beautiful tradition. And at the same time, somewhere in 1,600 years of singing it that way, the Jewish shepherds, the Jewish hillside, the Jewish Messiah, all got a little harder to see. And of course, Luke doesn't stop there. What comes next, the part of the story that almost everyone skips at Christmas is actually the whole point of the story. Luke 2, verse 21. When 8 days had passed for his Brit Milah, he was named Yeshua, the name given by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. See, the covenant that God made with Abraham in Genesis 17, that every male in the family is to be circumcised on the 8th day, is the sign of belonging. It's the mark of promise written on the body of every son of Israel from Abraham forward. Isaac received it. Jacob received it. Joseph received it. And this is where last week we talked when Joseph says to his brothers, come near. He shows his brothers his circumcision, the covenant of Abraham, the Brit Milah, the proof underneath the disguise of who he is. And on the 8th day, Yeshua receives that same mark. It's the identifying mark of every son of Israel. The mark that says of this baby, he's the son of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, David. He's the Messiah of Israel. And if his resurrection is bodily, and it is, he still bears that mark right now at the right hand of the Father. He did not leave his Jewishness in the tomb. He carried it through death and out the other side. And then the angel instructed his faithful Jewish parents in Matthew chapter 1 and verse 21, "And you shall call his name Yeshua, for he will save his people from their sins." In English, we call him Jesus, and you hear a name. In Hebrew, you call him Yeshua, and you hear a sentence. Yeshua means the Lord saves. So what Matthew's actually saying here, what he would have been saying in Hebrew is the Lord saves will save his people. That's why he was born. And who are his people? Israel. The same people God has been saving since Abraham. His name is the announcement. His name is a prophecy about who he is and what he came to do. Jesus is his legitimate name in English. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no conspiracy, as our friends say across the pond. There's no controversy. Just remember what the name means. The Lord saves. Every time you say his name in any language, that is what you're declaring. The Lord saves. So Luke continues in verse 22, Luke chapter 2, verse 22. "And when the days of the purification were fulfilled, according to the Torah of Moses, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to Adonai. As it is written in the Torah of Adonai, every firstborn male that opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. So they offered a sacrifice according to what was said in the Torah of Adonai, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons." Count what Luke does in these 3 verses. 3 times. Torah of Moses, Torah of Adonai, Torah of Adonai. Yeshua and his family are Jewish people in the first century. They attended synagogue on Shabbat. They spoke Hebrew and Aramaic. They celebrated Passover and Shavuot, Sukkot, and Hanukkah. They read from the Torah, the prophets, the writings in synagogue. They went to the temple. They only ate clean food. Yeshua had 12 Jewish men who called him Rabbi. He spoke of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And all of this, the 8th day, the Torah, even the sacrifice of the turtle doves, which is the sacrifice that poor people need to make if they can't afford a lamb, is how Yeshua can stand before his own people and say, "Ani Yeshua, I am Yeshua." But over time, Yeshua becomes Jesus and the meaning disappears. And HaMashiach, the anointed one, becomes Christ. Now, in Greek, Christ means anointed one, just like Mashiach means anointed one in Hebrew. Same word, same meaning. But over time, Christ stopped functioning as a title and became a surname. And when a title becomes a surname, it loses its meaning. It no longer points to a particular people, a particular story, or a particular set of promises. Yeshua HaMashiach becomes Jesus Christ. And that name, Jesus Christ, has been used by emperors and crusaders to force Jewish people to convert, to leave, or to die. The Crusades, the Inquisitions, the pogroms, Jews expelled from England, from France, from Spain, in the name of one whose name in all of those languages sounds like Latin, like Rome, not like a rabbi from Galilee who is one of us. The Jewish Messiah is recast as the God of empires. And then those empires came for his own people in his own name. And the Jewish people looked at that image, that name, that history, those armies and said, "Not our Messiah. That is not one of us." And, well, we were right about the disguise. We just couldn't see who was underneath that disguise. And here's what I want us to understand before we go any further. The people who put that disguise in place are all our fathers. Physically or spiritually, they are all our fathers. The rabbis who built the boundaries of Judaism and the church fathers who built the boundaries of Christianity, like every father in Genesis, they carry Tov and Ra at the same time. And we can't throw any of them away. We should strive to understand and read all of them. In his teachings, Yeshua himself warned against what he could see coming. Do not replace the written Torah with the traditions of men and command them as if they are from God. And of course, everyone has done that for the last 2,000 years. A generation after his death and resurrection, and continuing for 2,000 years, these two communities move in opposite directions. Judaism draws a boundary. Yeshua is not the Messiah. Christianity draws a boundary. We are a new religion, not a sect of Judaism. Both are trying to protect what they believe God gave to them. And both of them get it right sometimes and get it wrong sometimes. Tov and Ra together. The same as every generation before them and the same as us today. But here's what gets lost. Think about what the New Testament is. First century Jewish literature. Some of the earliest written records we have of Jewish life in the Second Temple period. And when you remove Yeshua from that Jewish context, you lose the ability to see him for who he is. In 1938, a Jewish follower of Jesus named Abram Poyak wrote something that reads today like prophecy. He said, "Never has the Jewish people been so near to the idea of the kingship of Jesus, but we must not demand too much at once. The Jewish people as a whole will not at once accept Jesus as their Messiah, but they will first cease to condemn him. Then they'll begin to think about him and recognize him as their brother, their teacher, and at last acknowledge him as a prophet and the Jew who is a central figure." Of course, he wrote that right before the Holocaust in 1938. And we're in a place in our culture where the condemnation of Jesus that he describes has largely passed. And we are in that movement from curiosity to recognition of Yeshua as our brother. And it's accelerating in our generation. We are living in that moment. In the words of David Stern, not the NBA commissioner, the title of his important book which we are participating in is Restoring the Jewishness of the Gospel. And Dr. Stern makes the case that you cannot preach the whole gospel to Jews or Gentiles without preaching the Jewishness of Jesus. The New Testament is first century Jewish literature written to complete the Hebrew Scriptures, which is why he wrote a translation of the Bible called the Complete Jewish Bible. The New Testament doesn't replace the Hebrew Scriptures. And his book inspired my book, which is called Jesus Never Said Anything New. It's the same argument for a new generation, still working towards the world embracing the Jewishness of Jesus. And both are available on Amazon. Luke began his gospel with the birth of the Messiah of Israel, and it ends with the written Yeshua still breaking matzah at the Passover table. The day he rose from the dead is the first day of the counting of the Omer, and Passover's still not over. Two of his disciples are walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus. And it says in Luke chapter 24 and verse 13, "Now behold, two of them on that very day were traveling to a village named Emmaus, a distance of about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were speaking with one another about all the things that had been happening. And while they were talking and discussing, Yeshua himself approached and began traveling with them. But like Joseph, their eyes were kept from recognizing him." This is the same hidden God who's been operating through the story of the end of Genesis and in our series. And now God is concealing the risen Yeshua from the two of his disciples on the 7-mile road. God's holding a disguise in place. And he asks them, what are they talking about? And they stop walking. They tell him everything. There's the crucifixion, the 3 days, the empty tomb. These women said the angels appeared and told them he was alive. And they're processing all the information, and they're hopeful and confused and grieving all at the same time. And no one has seen him yet. And the one, of course, they're speaking to and telling all of this to is him. And then, verse 25, Yeshua said to them, "O foolish ones, so slow of heart to put your trust in all that the prophets spoke. Was it necessary for Messiah to suffer these things and to enter into his glory? Then beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them the things written about himself in all the scriptures." Moses and all the prophets. That's the entire scriptures. The Torah, the prophets, the writing. He's in all of it. Every scroll, every story, every prophecy. It all points to Yeshua. Yeshua is not saying to them, forget the Torah. I'm something brand new. He's saying, beginning with Moses, the Torah is where you find me. The scriptures you've been reading your whole life, I'm the one they're about. He is not an innovator who created something new. He is a restorer who came to call his people Israel back to himself. So they arrive at the village, and verse 29, they urged him, saying, stay with us, for it's nearly evening and the day's already gone. So he went in to stay with them, and it happened that when he was reclining at the table with them, he took matzah, offered a blessing, and breaking it, gave it to them. It's interesting that they're reclining at the table because in the Greco-Roman world, a free person reclines and slaves serve standing. Egypt's behind us, so we eat as free people. And this practice comes from the Roman Greco world and was absorbed into the Jewish Passover as a declaration of freedom. And this mention in the Gospel of Luke is the earliest written reference to anyone reclining at the Passover table. So he takes matzah, still during Passover, and he blesses it, and he breaks it, just like we do at Passover. And it's the first time since that night, 3 nights ago. This is my body given for you. Remember, he said it to them, do this in remembrance of me. And the one who said that 3 days ago and then died, he's sitting across the table from them alive, breaking the matzah again. And then they recognize him, and then he disappears. That very hour, they go back to Jerusalem, those two, and the 12 are already gathered, and the 11 apostles are gathered, and he appeared, and they're excited because the Lord Yeshua had appeared to Peter alive, and now Cleopas and his companion add to their testimony. They say to them in verse 35, they began telling about the events on the road and how he became recognized by them in the breaking of the matzah. The bread of affliction, the bread of faith, the remembrance and the reality collide. This is when they saw him, when the matzah was broken. Then Yeshua himself appears to the whole group, gathered together in verse 36. And while they were speaking these things, Yeshua himself stood in the midst and said to them, Shalom Aleichem, peace be upon you. He's not on a road, not at a table. He stands in the middle of all of them, the gathered disciples in Jerusalem, still during Passover, and he says, peace be upon you. And they're so afraid because they think they're seeing a ghost. They can't believe what they're seeing with their eyes. Verse 38, and he said to them, why are you so shaken? And why do doubts arise in your heart? Look at my hands and my feet. It is I myself. Touch me and see, for a spirit doesn't have flesh and bones, as you see I have. This is the real body. This is the Passover lamb who died at the very same time the lambs were being offered in the temple right before Passover started. The same hands that broke the matzah, the same covenant mark, still his, still him. His physical body came back to life. And for the first time, he stands before all of them and he says, Ani Yeshua. I am Yeshua. In Genesis 45, Joseph stops holding back. He reveals himself to his brothers, and the hidden one is finally seen. In Luke 24, God stops holding back. He reveals himself to his brothers, and the hidden one is finally seen. And in both stories, the hidden one was present the whole time. It just takes coming close. Draw near. And when you do, you cannot keep to yourself what you see. Joseph says to his brothers, go tell my father I'm alive. Come to me. There's room for all of you. Yeshua says, go tell everyone that I'm alive. Come to me. There's room for all of you. In Genesis, there are 12 brothers who start Israel. In the Gospels, there are 12 apostles. Same calling, same family, same God. The first 12 formed the nation of Israel that is called to be a blessing to the world. The second 12 carry that blessing to the Gentiles. And if you're a Seahawks fan, you already know that 12s matter. Okay, at Restoration, We help people discover who Jesus is so that they can find a hope-filled identity in him. That's the goal. And in a few days, we're going to sit down at a Passover table, and we've shaped our community around the 4 cups of Passover. At Restoration, we articulate them this way in the 4 cups. The first cup is know God. Like we talked about last week, we draw near to God and he will draw near to you. He loves you. He wants to know you and be known by you. He has been closer to you than you have realized. The second cup is find community. You cannot hold what you've seen alone. You need community to carry the message of Yeshua. You need to find your people. You need to show up. You need to stay with those people. You were not delivered to be alone. The third cup is discover identity. Redemption is the restoration of what was lost, your name, belonging, your place in the story. And this is important because for Jewish people who are listening, you need to understand that your identity has never been lost, even when it was obscured. You are still Israel. You still carry the covenants your fathers received, the covenant responsibilities that God gave to us. Brit Milah, Shabbat, the feast, Kashrut, these were given to Israel and they remain yours. Jewish followers of Yeshua remain Jewish people. The new covenant is a covenant with the Jewish people. There's nothing transferred. There's nothing replaced. You do not have to choose between being Jewish and following Yeshua. Come to the table. You belong here. For Gentile people, you need to know that your identity in this story is not an afterthought. Christianity is Judaism for Gentiles. It's not a replacement religion. It's the same story, the same God, the same promise extended to the nations. You are a fulfillment of prophecy. You represent a remnant from every nation worshiping the God of Israel. You are not a replacement. You are the harvest. The covenant responsibilities that God gave to Israel were never yours to carry, but you're also free to participate in them. Enjoy Shabbat, the feast, the Passover table, which illuminates who Yeshua is and where you are in the story. Because your place in the story is glorious. So come to the table. You belong here. The fourth cup is make a difference. From the moment God called Abraham, through you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. That promise has never changed. It's always been moving outward through Israel to every nation, Jews and Gentiles together, carrying it forward the way God always intended it. To make a difference is to carry the blessing outward. There is one God. His name is Yeshua, and there is a place for you at the table. That's the gospel. And just like the disciples 2,000 years ago, we're still opening the same scriptures. We still celebrate Passover. We still break the matzah. And we still present Yeshua as he really is, so that all people can hear him in his own voice. Am Yeshua. I am Yeshua. The same hidden God. The same family. The same story. From Genesis 12 to the Emmaus Road to Shabbat HaGadol and Restoration in Seattle. As we draw near to God, we can invite anyone to find a seat at Yeshua's table. So like we ended the sermon last week with Joseph, we do with Yeshua too. Come close, Vayigash, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. I love you guys. And I hope to see you next week. Chag Sameach. Have a great Passover.